Very clever.
Yeah.
My name is Jan. It's the widest natural waterfall in Estonia. It is 8 meters high. Water goes through the whole moss and the peat gives it like this brown color. But it actually means that the water is really, really clean because the bogs are really acidic. So it kills all the bacteria and you can, literally drink from the river if you like.
See how it's flowed on either side when the water volume has been great enough. Here you see an example of how it continually over time, as falls do, undercuts the limestone and it collapses. See, there's this entire valley, shallow valley, is all carved out from that water. So we're now in this Viru Manor complex, and he'll discuss it in a few minutes.
Of gods they had. We have some idea. We know about one god called Tara or Tarapita, and you can maybe guess that it is derived from Thor in the Vikings religion. It's usually believed that it came from north. And the ones who answered for the Crusades were the Teutonic Knights from Germany and the Danish king. So they would attack Lithuania, but Lithuania was kind of a unified country. They had their own king, and they were actually later on the last pagans in Europe. So they avoided Lithuania and they conquered Latvia. Then the Danish got really scared, they sold their land to
In the day, this house was last owned by the Stenbacher family, a wealthy Swedish family. And this was just their summer estate. They owned, their home was the home on top of the hill in Tallinn, which is now, and we've seen it, the Parliament building. So it gives you an idea of how wealthy they were. And where their wealth came from in great measure was that building and similar buildings. That was a vodka distillery. They had learned how apparently to create vodka, and it was absolutely a money machine, be analogous to Microsoft's operating system in the early days. Hotel operation has bought this and theoretically is going to renovate it. But it's extremely expensive, as you can imagine. That large building right in the center is the building that we're in now, the manor house. Everything else was support buildings, but look at these two big complexes over here. This is where you would have entered into a grand entrance in the sense of the double arches and the stairway framed behind them. To look at some of this and try to imagine how it was in the day, what kind of furniture sat right there that would please and impress the very special and expensive visitors that might show up here. What kind of wallpaper or treatment was given to these walls that would so impress a visitor? It's like wood, but it's not terribly impressive when you think about it. So what would it have looked like in the day that would have made it impressive? Some of the inner rooms. Here, a large fireplace would have been behind there, far more elegant than what we're seeing now. This would have been the hearth somehow. And was it separated in the same manner as we see here with shelving? I doubt it. This is probably more designed to keep this space from collapsing. Their fireplace. These rooms now being used by apparently this artist behind me to sell this curious style. This little raised portion right here begs us to understand what it might have looked like. Were there benches there, furniture, something that would allow you to sit and relax in those alcoves and look out, take the breeze? Much of this was original, and what was this room? Why tile on the floor? And when it was fresh and perhaps shiny, but absolutely perfect. Some other buildings. Looks like a crypt of some sort, or sarcophagus. Soviets finally abandoned in 1918, I think it was. The government here offered these old landowners their buildings and their land if they wanted it. This family took only this house here, this building here, to make into a bed and breakfast type of place. How wealthy they were at that time, I don't know. Kolga moss. Irony is the sense you get is just raw size and ugly cement block structure. Of course, if it's done in the style of the day, it can't be faulted. Now behind, I'm going to this blue building here. You can see that a large part of it at some point in time was walled in. What the point was and the purpose of that arched wall with windows beyond, so it was a walkway, it appears to be. This is where we're going to hike. We're starting down here. We'll hike up along this trail. He will leave us at this point, drive around and pick us up at the top. This area is a peat moss where they used to harvest that. They apparently don't do that. This moss, apparently, while it looks pretty, we call it grandfather moss when we see it in the park, for example, in the North Washington coast. Apparently it dries out and ultimately kills some of these branches. It's some kind of an algae. At first I didn't think it reached up, but you can see it reaches up to a pretty good height, maybe all the way up. It may ultimately can kill such a tree. You see a great deal of it. It might make these things far more susceptible to forest fires, creating the equivalent of ground fuel. Here a low area filling in. It's first a swamp and then a bog, then perhaps ultimately peat. The bog is a bowl turned upside down. This is a part of the border-to-border hiking trail. I don't know if there are camping facilities along the way, but that's pretty neat. You can take your bike along this route. Now we're entering the bog. One of the marks of advancing civilization has to be the recognition, appreciation, and protection of places that look otherwise uninviting, difficult to navigate.
In the distance is not really special until it becomes a season of it. It should be at the end of July when it starts to smell, and it starts to smell really strongly, and some people get really strong headaches from it, and even some people can even get hallucinations.